Hello, welcome to this week's edition of the Ride Along Radio Show. This makes show number 77.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we said we got to plan that centennial show, or whatever you call when you get to 100 of them.
I don't know.
The C-Note show.
I don't know what you call it, but I think we should do a live show that day.
Yeah, I agree with you. You mentioned the live audience. We could get some people in here, and we get some
put some chairs right there,
some Steve Wilco type Jerry Springer
and
bouncers.
do it. I'll have my own personal security.
You better,
because y'all want to jump up on Gil.
You better.
I don't know why, but that's what I think we should do.
You don't know why?
I don't know why.
Yeah, okay.
I'm Gil O'Reilly. I'm the teller of truth, and the spin stops here.
He's the teller of tall tales. Gil O'Reilly. So he's Gil O'Reilly / Contreras. I'm George Holt, and you will see to my left here in the third chair,
J.B. Williams.
J.B. Williams.
Just plain old J.B.
J.B., who's been once and again the man in the right seat there, in the left seat, I guess.
Right, to your left.
To my left. The viewer's right. So he's going to be adding his stuff and his perspective.
His learned
stuff.
His
learned perspective.
Sure.
His informed perspective to today's proceedings. Now, I was not here last week, and so Gil and Kent Lee stepped in to do the show, and Gil always does the show, but Kent Lee stepped in to assist Gil. And I didn't get a chance to watch it live. I always try to catch it live, but I didn't get a chance to catch it live last week. I was just I was just too busy.
How did that go? What were the comments like?
Well, first of all, I'll give you my personal perspective, and then I'll give you some viewer comments. I thought it was a very good show, and I never have any doubt that it will be a good show with either one of those two here, let alone both of them. But it was, so what you have sometime is Gil, who's kind of right, and then Kent, who'll be all the way to the right. But it didn't really. He didn't go too far out this time. He really didn't. He had a theory about oligarchy and ancient money, which actually the way he laid it out is not the first time I've heard it, and I can't dispute anything that he said. And even David Cruz, when you asked David Cruz,
right.
He said, "Hey, I can't disagree with anything that he said." Essentially talking about the true powers that be, the oligarchy.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and what people refer to as the quote deep state. You hear this
Deep
a lot
state,
all of a sudden.
Yeah. Because they used to say New World Order, right?
Right.
And Illuminati, et cetera, et cetera. They don't say that anymore, I guess.
Right. But I used to just dismiss all that stuff. I was like, okay, well I'm the conservative guy, but those guys are to the right of me. Okay.
Right. Who believe that? That's a tinfoil hat guy.
I'm not out there. However, as I'm doing more research, and I thought we had a really good, and I really want to thank David Cruz, because David Cruz is a longtime,
he's an elder statesman,
award-winning veteran journalist. He from TV and radio. He joined us by phone, and he stayed for the whole hour. From 8:30 to 9:30. And I just thought, man, I had more video clips and stuff that I had thought I would run.
That's what you said, yeah. But he was just
the discussion was, I thought it was so substantive, and we really were getting at things in a way that I really wanted to. And I just thought it was so good. I really enjoyed it.
I really did, and the viewers enjoyed it.
Oh, did they? What were the comments?
Well, here's a top comment, and this is from Cabot Haynes. Okay, the viewer who is W. Gil O'Reilly. He says, as usual, great show. Gil was surprisingly well behaved with George not being there. Kent Lee's balance, air quotes, is appreciated and missed. I only have one point of contention with the phone guest David Cruz. I am Gil's biggest fan. That's what Cabot Haynes says.
Oh no, but
he didn't say what the point of contention was with David.
No, that's Cruz. What it is, because David said when he came on, he said, that he'd been my biggest fan for.
Oh, he's saying he's Gil's biggest fan,
right?
Not David Cruz.
No, David Cruz said he's my biggest fan.
Right.
So his point of contention is, that I shouldn't be David's biggest fan.
Oh, I thought he was saying that he was your biggest fan, not David.
No, he's not saying that.
Clear that up.
That's
Clear
what
that
sounds
up
like to me.
It sounds like it to me, but maybe that's what he said. I guess I must have missed that part. And Chris Wimbush, who says, great show, guys, but I do have one question. Was either one of you saying the same thing about the press when Obama was in office?
Absolutely.
If so, I commend you.
Because they gave Obama a pass on everything.
If so, I commend you. But if not, then why attack the press now only when Trump is in office?
Yeah. I've been attacking the press for years.
Well, even when you were part of the press.
Jitters and jitters.
Willie Sweet Wonka Joe. He left 2 comments. I'm going to read one. What was really great about this episode is that Gil, Lee, and Cruz all agree with the same things Minister Farrakhan has been saying for years. So
that's why I'm converting.
There's some common ground.
I'm converting.
All right. Well, the temple's not too far, right? The mosque, not the temple. The mosque. It's not too far.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, I really did think that. I think that was good, man. And I stopped by Kent Lee's house on the way in here today, and I told him the same thing. And so, I want to tell you the same thing, man. That was good. I enjoyed watching it. Like anyone else would. I mean, really, I didn't have any feeling that that I should, have been here for it. I just really just enjoyed watching it. That was good, man.
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was it was an interesting perspective, and I don't know that much about the quote deep state close quote. But, there's more and more people in Dennis Kucinich, who's one of the furthest to the left people.
He used to be mayor of what, Cleveland or Cincinnati?
Yeah,
Cleveland.
Presidential candidate
twice.
But
he was mayor of Cleveland, I think, at one point.
Right.
Yeah.
And, what he's saying, he's actually saying this, and, we didn't run his interview last week, but in an interview with Hannity, he said, that this is a coup. He's calling it a coup.
A soft coup.
A soft coup.
Right, I heard that, yeah.
Of the presidency. And also, I posted last week stories on The Intercept, which is Glenn Greenwald's publication. Uh-huh. And Glenn Greenwald, of course, is the guy who broke the Ed Snowden story. And so he, he's another lefty. And he did an interview on Democracy Now!, which is far left public. And so you have all these leftists saying, this is very dangerous. This daily attack, calling for impeachment. I mean, even crazy Pelosi is saying.
Said, hey, slow down on all that impeachment talk.
They're saying, hey, just pump your brakes. We need facts. For God's sake, we don't have any facts.
Well, that's people rushing to judgment. But, God willing, it'll all come to pass. But you know what? There's a difference though between liberals and leftists.
Correct.
And people don't realize that there's that distinction there.
Dennis Kucinich is a liberal.
Right, and there's a difference between people, the conservatives and alt-right.
Correct.
I mean, there's a difference, and people.
That's correct.
We get so caught up with these labels, we don't really think that there's any gray area there or any space in there, and there's plenty of space in there.
Right, there is, but we have to, like David doesn't like to use these labels, and he hasn't for a long time. Even when I was on his show, and I would say, something about the left, he'd go, well, or progressives, I like to use that one.
That's your big one.
He doesn't. He said, he doesn't like to use labels, but I have to in order for people to understand what I'm trying to say. So, decriminalizing crime, that's a progressive public safety idea. Having men urinate in a ladies' room, that's progressives, social public policy ideas. So in order for people to understand what I'm talking about, I have to say this is who is saying it, and this is why I don't agree with it.
But here's the thing. It shouldn't matter who's saying it. If you don't agree with it, you don't agree with it.
Right. And I think sometimes that labels actually do such a disservice to just thinking about things because we automatically say, oh, well, this person said it, so it's wrong. I don't agree with it. Or or this type of person, liberal.
So if President Trump says or does anything, the media jumps on him.
Immediately. And I'm going to tell you that exactly right. And I catch myself doing it. I'll be scrolling through social media and I'll see an article. And I have to stop myself from doing this, but I always look to see who posted it. And then I already kind of know if it's going to be the bullshit or not in my mind. Yeah, and that's wrong. But that's wrong. I shouldn't do that.
But some of it sounds so far-fetched that it's not right off the cuff.
But you got to at least get into it, as opposed to approaching it with that spin on it in your mind already.
Listen, I'm to this point, I am not surprised at anything Donald Trump does. But I don't believe everything I hear about him, as regardless of who says it.
Right, like this thing about him having Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I haven't heard that.
I heard that. Yeah, that popped up like 3 or 4 days ago. Proof that he's got Alzheimer's.
When you're reading posts, I think you're supposed to look at it and then say, who posted this? And then what I do is, like, if I see something and go, I really agree with that, but who's writing this?
No. I don't mean who's writing the article. No. I mean, who posted it? Which one of my Facebook friends posted it? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, see,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm still at the point where I'm going to either watch CNN or Fox and try to decipher the facts. Well, I'm only saying that I try to decipher the facts from both, rather than get too deep in the electronic media because I'm not going to say I subscribe. Well, the fake news. I mean, the way it's thrown out there, because all of it is not true, or all of it's not fact-based, or all of it is not, all of the facts are not always clear. And being a police officer, you learn that.
Right.
Don't, we're lucky. We don't just jump to conclusions.
Correct.
I have people that are around me sometimes that are not in law enforcement, and I'm sitting there and they're like, oh my God, Trump did this. And I'm going, let me see that. And you look at it and it's like, it's not even worth commenting on.
Right.
And, so that's another reason why I try to stay away from the labels. I try to stay away from the electronic media, this breaking news, even if it's on CNN or Fox. I try to get a little bit of both to listen to because, quite frankly, I don't always see Fox giving Trump a pass. And, some of the things they'll question.
Right. What's the guy's name? Shepard Smith?
Yeah.
He doesn't give him a pass.
Right.
He really
so to me, I am not. Well, I shouldn't say I am not. I'm not surprised at what Trump does or what people accuse Trump of doing. But I try to find two different sources in order to ferret out whatever is truly the issue. Like today, you wake up with Jeff Sessions not giving up all of it or not disclosing all of his contacts.
Right.
And I'm thinking well, part of me's not surprised. But then being a law enforcement officer, I'm like, that's not good at all.
Right. You can't, it's not okay to admit anything on a background investigation form. It's just not. You gotta put everything out there.
Right.
It can't be incomplete. There can't be any omission because that's considered to be lying by omission.
And you can explain it away if truly you believe that what you did was poor judgment.
Then you put it down there.
Put it out there.
And you explain it later.
Yeah, and you own up to it because when you do that, that shows, especially because we've done backgrounds before, that it's like, you know what, you can't beat this guy because everything else is clear. Right. It's like you don't know what to believe, and then you believe that you're starting to waste your time on that candidate.
Exactly. And in backgrounds, you lie, you die.
Right.
That's how that goes.
That's to become a police officer. There's no backgrounds to become a politician.
But to get into certain levels of a point. Right. Well, you can't call Jared Kushner a politician because he's not an elected official. He's just appointed. But Jeff Sessions was a politician before becoming appointed.
Right. And
certainly he may have that mixed up too. I mean, he can actually come back and say, listen, I was looking at it from the political perspective because congressmen and
but that SF-86 is very
I know. It's specific.
It's very specific. Not only if I had to fill one out, when I was doing backgrounds for a State Department contract, I had to go through them and check people's backgrounds against them. So I'm very familiar with the form.
And you're looking at Kushner now. I mean, he likely is the only one that'll get a pass on that because they had some, office folks in the transition filling it out, but he came back. But I'm saying at least he came back.
Sure, and they came back and put it on there. But man, can you imagine letting somebody else fill out your background package?
Yeah, but I
know he's a busy guy.
Right.
He's not some guy working at Pep Boys hoping to get hired by a police department. I understand that.
They're used to that.
But damn.
But when you're at that high level, I was a chief's adjutant at our agency.
Yeah.
So when you work for those guys,
I was the chief's agitator.
I was the adjutant.
I've been both.
and the guys who didn't know say, "Hey, did you hear Gil's the new adjutant?" What's an adjutant?
An adjutant. That's funny.
That's what it looks like.
But there's many times when the head guy would just turn to his right hand man and say, "Hey,
can you take care of
here's this? Just give it back to me so I can sign it.
Right.
Do the research and
true.
Let me."
That's true. They'll do that.
So I see, and I think
then they'll end up both being in prison.
We can't hold.
Tanaka, Baca.
We can't hold
bunkies.
We can't hold these other people to the same standard that you would.
But once you put your signature on that form, man, you bought it.
As a police officer.
You know what?
I understand, but you put your signature on that form, man, you bought. You bought
what
and paid
I thought
for
about
it.
today?
Right, yeah, but you bought and paid with what's there.
But you at least got to go through it, right,
George? You know what I thought about today?
You should.
When I'm listening to these stories and I'm thinking this is an example of the immaturity of government. When people come up with these bright ideas to hire someone from business to bring them into a government entity to run a government agency.
There's a difference, right?
And in this instance, the guy has the wherewithal, the resources to be able to run for president, wins, and then gets in office and still has. I was told it was still up to 1,000 positions that have not been filled yet.
Really?
Yeah. And
what? Because they're held up for confirmation or what?
No, it's just a number of.
Because he's been having hell getting these secretaries of the military.
Yeah, but when you consider they don't necessarily have those contacts in government, and they're depending on someone else to do it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But it's a level of immaturity from the government standpoint because look, he's used to building buildings, but I assure you, he doesn't play by the rules like most people have to because he doesn't have to because he's generating taxes and revenue
he's
for
getting a pass on stuff.
So,
and he's
and he's probably getting his hand held and walked through. So when they get this level and they become president, he doesn't. This is why you have all these missteps. And I'm not excuse. Why do you think it is?
Because from the moment he won the election, for God's sakes. Most people say he wasn't supposed to win.
Yeah, but
it was supposed to be Hillary Clinton.
But they said that about Obama.
No, I don't want to talk about Obama.
No, but I'm saying they said that about Obama.
Said what about?
Wait, hold on a second. Gil just said at 8:20 p.m. on Thursday, May 25th, that he didn't want to talk about Obama.
Yeah,
that's the first on the Right Long Radio show. I just want to memorialize that for everybody.
He's not relevant.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
He's not relevant.
Okay, good. Go ahead. I just want to memorialize it.
He got swept in. I mean, everybody knew it was going to be a landslide. The media.
It wasn't a surprise.
No, of course not.
What I'm saying for all of the things that were said about President Obama from conservatives, from racists, and everyone else that attacked him, he still handled his business because he had experience in government. What I'm saying is that Donald Trump didn't have that. He had the network and the relationships. He just didn't have the relationships he needed to get off to a running start. And the people that were there around him and with him, this is why you're running into all these problems, especially with Mc Clain.
That's not why.
Why?
No, that's not why.
Why is it?
The reason he's running into these, quote, problems, close quote, and this goes back to the conversation that we started last week, is because he's the first president who has been attacked by not only the opposition party, but by his own party. He's got,
right, they didn't want him either.
That's right. He's got establishment Republicans, establishment Democrats. He's got the far left and the far right. And they're all working against him because they all want him to do a specific thing.
All I'm saying is, Gil, if he had a little more government experience, he would not
government
be
experience
as far as filling posts and keep running into these stumbling blocks, sure, that would be very helpful to understand how government works.
He's not running into stumbling blocks. He's running into 8 years of Obama people that are just saturated in government, and you can't get rid of them.
But the Republicans
every time you change a president, you have 8 years of the prior, because we haven't had a one-term president since the first George Bush.
You've never had a bunch of holdovers from a previous administration who actively work to undermine the new president.
What Obama holdovers does Trump have?
Who do you think leaked those papers? You
just said they're holdovers. Who are the holdovers?
They're the ones who are stuck in government that can't be fired, who don't like Donald Trump.
But all the career government people were not Obama folks.
Right, because we're talking about senior government people. They got more than 8 years
Reagan.
on.
Yeah, they've been there since before
that.
Not all of them.
Well, if you got 8 years on, you may not be senior enough to even get your hands on anything to leak. Well, we're gonna run out of time to get into our news of the day.
I just want to say this. This is why that one comment you read about Gil behaved himself. I did not have this to contend with last week, and that is
contend with.
Yeah, and that is taking this, you said earlier that all you watch is CNN and Fox and you try to find out. I don't even bother with them anymore. It's all, they take a little piece of information and then they create this 24-hour
news loop.
Breaking news. Right. Everything's breaking news.
Right.
And they don't know one thing. This is what the one thing that David Cruz talked about last week is how could the Washington Post run a story about a memo that nobody has seen? He said that's unheard of. That's no journalistic standard.
Where are you getting your news from?
You can't have a reporter.
If this is fake news and that's fake news, where are you getting your news from?
I read them from different publications on the internet.
And the exact same thing he said he avoids.
Right, exactly. And I'm saying I avoid
because the television is all.
But hell, let's be honest. They'll let anybody write some shit and put on the internet.
You could do. Yeah,
anybody could write anything and put on the internet, and you can do it anonymously.
You
can't go on Fox News and speak anonymously.
Well,
you got to be right here.
You have to know the writers.
I will leave it on this last point if you'll allow. you mentioned about Washington Post and that they can make up a story based on having no copy of a memo.
Correct.
You only need to go back to Bob Woodward and Watergate,
right?
Where they had a little information, they ran a story, they ran with what they had.
It didn't go like that.
It did, because
you have to count on source.
Deep Throat was a source.
You have to count on sources.
But the editors at that time made him corroborate it, for God's sakes. They didn't just say, hey, this guy named Deep Throat gave me this information. They ran with the story. That's not how you do it. That's not how you did it. That's how you do it now.
That was different.
That's not how you did it back then.
And I will give you that.
They made those guys work, and they made those guys find other sources.
Yeah, because those implications
tried to corroborate it because it was a big story.
Those implications were far bigger for that time.
That's right.
Than the things that we're experiencing today.
That's right.
And so people have to depend on sources. And that's one of the reasons why I don't subscribe to the internet news, because, like George said, anybody can just post it out there.
It's not the quote internet news, close quote. There's no site named internet news.
There are different
writers and publications online, and you have to know who, okay, I don't generally read The Intercept because it's kind of left-leaning. That's Glenn Greenwald's publication. But I have found that Glenn Greenwald is at least reporting truths without innuendo and speculation, unlike the TV people. So I go, okay, even though I don't necessarily agree with Glenn Greenwald, I'll at least read his pieces, and I'll even post them if I go, okay, this is the story, and Greenwald has it, and Fox doesn't, and neither does CNN.
Yeah, well, if you sit around and wait for facts, then you won't have a news show.
That's right. And that's why I don't watch that.
No, and I'm talking about like us, police officers, having it in your face and looking at it and going, wow, this meets all the elements. This is what it is. If you sit around and wait for that and you don't use your sources.
That used to be the journalistic standard, sir.
Right.
You had to have two sources.
Apparently.
You had to be able to corroborate it.
Right. And it is different.
I don't see them having to run with that without. Well, I guess we'll know if they had sources when it's all comes out. We'll know, if there was a corroborating source or not.
And it's no different in law enforcement.
Let's roll on to our let me get at least one news story of the day in, because this is something we talked about. This is a topic we talked about before on the Right Long Radio Show. So Orenthal James Simpson, also known as O.J. Simpson, who is currently serving, would they give him 16 years in prison in Nevada for robbery?
I don't know. Was it that many? I don't remember.
But really for murder. He's up for parole, and there are people clearly who are not happy about it. But I wanted to run the news story that says the juice could be loose as early as this Halloween.
O.J. Simpson is his own worst enemy.
He is.
If he pays his dues to society, as we like to say, if he does his time and he's eligible for parole, I think he should get out. But what I will say is, OJ is another person that I'm never surprised at what he does or what he gets into.
Yeah, the juice became very self-destructive. But let's roll that video, producer, if we can, and then we'll come back and talk about the juice. And will he be set loose?
O.J. Simpson could be released from a Nevada prison this year. The 69-year-old former NFL player is likely to go up for parole in July. Despite being granted parole on a handful of the charges that put him in prison, Simpson has failed at attempts to appeal his verdict. Now, if everything works out, Simpson may be free by this fall. A spokesperson from the Nevada Department of Corrections says October 1st is his eligibility date. That hearing will be scheduled somewhere in the 3 months prior to that date. If things don't work in his favor, he'll remain locked up until 2022.
All right, so that was October 1st. I'm sorry, I thought it was October 31st. So October 1st, which means, what is that, about 90 more days?
Right.
Roughly. Right. Roughly 90, about 40 more days, I guess. The juice could be on the loose. So, this is a dude who, he went from sugar to shit, okay? and he did. The juice life was sweet, man. It really was. And
sugar to shit.
and this is a dude who, through whatever happened, the way he handled the whole thing with the double murder, and not realizing the stigma that was on him, and not really making any attempt to act anything other than guilty, he just really, ruined his public persona, and it was spotless. It was pretty much spotless pretty much spotless. The Juice was one of those first celebrities that transcended race in the public eye and was able to move from one medium to another. The guy was a sports star who went on to become a movie star, and that's what he was doing. Capricorn 1, the Naked Gun series, and whatever else he had done.
Hertz.
So the Hertz commercials, right? So this guy had it all, man. And then the double murders went down, and that whole spectacle, we don't need to get into. But then he continues just to get into stuff after that, and he continued to get himself into sticky situations and bring himself to the attention of law enforcement and the media in a way in which he had never done before. We saw George Zimmerman do the same thing, by the way. After his acquittal, George Zimmerman started getting in trouble more than he had ever gotten in trouble before. And it wasn't all because people were seeing him and confronting him. It was things that he was doing that was drawing attention to himself. So, there's this need for punishment on the behalf of people. It's a deep psychological thing, which we don't have time to get into in that show anyway. But the Juice, what he did was, and when he went up for his first parole hearing after 5 years, he went before the judge and goes, hey, I would give these guys that stuff back if I could get these last 5 years back. And the judge said, she shot it down because basically she said, listen, he still doesn't seem to get it. That, yes, that was his stuff, but if you let your neighbor borrow your stuff and your neighbor doesn't bring it back when they're supposed to, you can't go kick your neighbor's door in with a gun and go to get it back.
And you go get the homies, too.
Yeah, you go get your homies,
right?
And you come go get your stuff.
Right. Yeah, well, that's what you do in the hood, right?
Oh.
But you can't do that in Las Vegas, in a Las Vegas casino, even a raggedy little casino like the Palace Station. That kind of thing is
that where he
was? The Palace Station, yeah. That sort of thing is frowned upon by the hotel establishment.
Right.
So, although they do have a bomb gumbo spot downstairs, they really do.
I thought it was the New Orleans. The Orleans.
No.
It was
you want to go to
Palace
Palace
Station?
That's where he was at Palace Station.
Oh, I thought he was at the Orleans. I thought it was like
Station.
a really not so nice place.
But it's the Palace Station, isn't it? You kidding me? The only thing they got is a good gumbo. They got a good seafood bar downstairs. Other than that, they can keep the Palace Station. But anyway, so Juice is supposed to get out. He's 69 years old.
He's
recognized. He's decrepit, and he's not as wealthy as he once was. However, he was getting an NFL pension of about $25,000 a month. Hell, 15 years ago, so who knows what it is now.
Right.
So he's not destitute, and he can come on out and go live his life quietly.
But
I'd go to Belize or something if I was him.
Yeah, so
they let me.
So he's got a couple of issues.
To get off the X, man.
Well, he's got a couple of issues. I mean, if he belongs to the state of Nevada, he ain't.
He can't go
Nevada.
to Belize. God damn, he got to go to Pahrump or something.
Yeah, right. Or Gene,
yeah, something. Damn.
But I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you could have a toddler in a stroller and they recognize O.J. Simpson. He's 69. Even if he has an income, he'll likely end up at the Bunny Ranch in trouble or something.
Why would he do that? Yeah, they got Viagra.
Wow.
Why would he do that?
Well,
I don't disagree with you, but I just wonder, why won't the guy just come out and be quiet? You know what? I saw Charlie Hustle. I've seen him twice now. Pete Rose. I've seen him at Caesar's Palace twice signing sports memorabilia because that's another way he supplements his income, right? Just being banned from baseball. The Juice could do the same thing. That's what he was doing when he got in trouble.
When they stole it from him.
When they stole it from him. But I mean, he could, or just don't do anything. If you figure if it was 25 G's a month 15 years ago, it's probably 30 grand now. Man, take your 30 grand and go sit down someplace.
Yeah, no, he's got
to lease a house with a swimming pool.
He's got to go out and play golf. He's got to mingle
play
with
golf.
people.
But don't get out there and get stupid and get involved in nonsense. And if somebody steals your sports memorabilia, let them have it.
Well, the other thing he's got to do is he's got to go find a killer. Remember, he said
Well, that's the thing. See, but now they got away because he's been in the joint for 9 years. So
So he did say that. He did say that was one of if till the day he dies, he's going to be looking for those killers.
That's what he said.
Except he can't arrest Jason. So.
Just
kidding. Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. Well, listen, we're going to take a very quick break, reset, and come back in, and we've got a guest on the line. We're going to bring that guest on. God, you're throwing body shots today. So, and then we'll get into our next segment. So we'll see you guys in a bit. Short break.
I saw Elvis the other day. Get out of here, man. Elvis.
All right, and that was Elvis is Dead, and he is too, by Living Color. That reminds me of my early 90s red Jeep Wrangler days, rolling up and down Pico Boulevard in L.A. as a young policeman with a big wallet and a new shiny car.
I actually saw Elvis on the 118 freeway once.
Did you?
Yeah, he was in about a 72 minivan. So I don't know where he was going, but
72 minivan.
This is in 72?
72.
Was it in 72?
It wasn't in 72. No, it was in 2000 something.
Oh,
he was just on the freeway.
Then you saw a zombie.
He was driving eastbound.
Well, you know what?
On the 118. I don't know. I don't know where he was going.
I don't know, man. He might have been heading to Graceland. Now, I went to Graceland. I didn't go to Graceland. That's not true. I was outside the gates of Graceland on Elvis Presley Boulevard in Memphis, visiting family, and and so I said, "Hey, there's Graceland," and one of my family members who lives in Memphis says, "You don't want to go in there, do you?" I go, "Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that if we got time on this trip. I'm not a big Elvis fan, but I wouldn't mind seeing Graceland." She says, "I went in there, please. That furniture is so old-fashioned. He got velour and stuff from the 70s. Her name is Jackie. I said, Jackie, well, Elvis ain't had a whole lot of time to redecorate since 1979. So, yeah.
Somebody told me it looks like an old black funeral home inside.
Wow. All the velvet and the gilded furniture and stuff. Well, you know what? Hey, the dude, the idea was to go see it as he left it, right? So there it is. I understand it's quite nice though, but I've been to Memphis since in this row by the gates again. So whatever. So listen,
put it on your bucket list.
I will. It'll be on some kind of list. But so in this segment we're going to talk about unfair hiring and promotional practices in law enforcement, and I recently penned an op-ed piece that you can find at American Police Beat at apbweb.com. And the name of the article is Rank and File Questions Dubious Hiring. And it is about dubious
hiring.
And it is about an agency where I used to work. And, if you read the article, you'll know, the Los Angeles Airport Police Department. There, I said it. Bringing in outside people to leadership positions, even though there are plenty qualified people within the ranks. And I actually have we have on the line Mr. Marshall Mc Clain, who is the president. Actually, it'd be Officer Marshall Mc Clain, who's the president of the Los Angeles Airport Police Officers Association, who's been a guest on the Ride Along radio show before. Marshall, you there?
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. This is a subject that is near and dear to both of our hearts because we both worked at the same place, and we both saw people in-house be passed over for people. We're talking about top leadership positions, the chief and assistant chief, et cetera, and they were not. The people in-house were not given the proper consideration. And one of the things that kind of got me spun up about this is there's assistant chief positions open. You got 5 captains within the agency. The next logical step for one of them on the career path, at least, is assistant chief. We conduct a nationwide search, allegedly, to find the best candidates. And you don't find one candidate from within, but you do find people from outside who are local and who are friends of the current chief. How does that, that was the thing that made me say, you know what, that's clearly something's up. This has been going on for too long. It's happened, what was it, 2006 or 7? The first time that really started happening. And you started having people come in from the outside and bringing the homeboys over and kind of like passing out these good city jobs. And, and damn the people who had been working inside all this time. So,
yeah.
So, I mean, you read the piece and you know firsthand what's going on there. Is there any move to try to change the selection process or executive hiring searches? Because it's not the same to hire a police chief, it is, or even a lieutenant and above. That selection process is different than it is for an officer. So is there any move made or any talk of anybody doing anything to change that?
Well, we're doing some things that are going to force the discussion because, like you said, it has gone on too long. But actually, it's 6 captain positions, not 5.
Really?
There's 6 captain positions. Just so everybody listening in can really kind of capture what's going on. Yeah, I know this happens at other agencies where they bring in a chief of police from somewhere else, or you have a situation where there's a consent decree and you bring someone in to lead the organization. And
for fresh blood, purposes of fresh blood, right?
Right, and I get that. I mean, LAPD had Willie from Philly come in.
And Broadway Bill.
Bill Bratton. But even with that, we're not under a consent decree, knock on wood. We haven't ever been. in terms of an organization, it's really a young organization in terms of full-fledged law enforcement agency from 1984 on. Goes back to 1946, but they weren't full-fledged law enforcement back then, weren't full post-certified back then. So since 1984, the last Olympics, we're trying to gear up for the next Olympics now, 2024, or if we don't get that, 2028. But what I want you to catch is the fact that right now our organization is not quite 600. I think we're holding around 550 from the chief on down.
That's sworn. That's just sworn. That's not even considering all the civilian employees who are also in uniform, hundreds of them, to total out to about 1,000 people in the organization, right?
Yeah, it's just under 1,200 when you put them all together. And let's talk about the big picture. When this all got going, we're talking 4 airports, 2 of them not in the city of Los Angeles, 1 in another county. Outside of CHP,
there was not another agency
organization that has resources in more than one county.
Well, and let's name those so people understand. So those 4 airports were Palmdale Airport, which is a regional airport, Van Nuys, which is general aviation, and sits to the north of Los Angeles in the valley. Of course, LAX International Airport, which is now the second busiest airport in the country, right?
Well, it's the second busiest in the country, the 4th busiest in the world.
In the world, right. And then Ontario International Airport, which is the one that you were talking about, is in a whole other county. And we say this all the time, only the CHP has uniform patrol operations in more than one county. They're in the airport police. So it's a dynamic agency with a lot of responsibilities. And to have people inside with that specialized knowledge continually be passed over, it just makes you wonder what the problem is.
Absolutely. Van Nuys is one of the busiest general aviation, and when I started there, actually when you came there, George, they were actually trying to buy El Toro and making that a 5th airport.
That's right. I forgot all about that, but yeah, I do remember that now.
So
can you imagine?
When you talk about the top of our organization, above captain, there's a assistant chief, there's chief, and then there's a director position. Those are 5 positions there, and all of them are staffed by people who never actually worked at the organization prior to being hired.
Well, see, and people may say, well, why is that important? Listen, I understand you bringing in one person, maybe 2 people from the outside. But when all of your upper command staff are people who've never done the job there at that facility, at that environment, and I can tell you, I came from another agency, and I came there, and I would say a good 90% of what I already knew applied there, but there was a whole other 10, maybe even 15% that I had to learn, and it was a very important 10 or 15%. It's like any other specialized environment. There are certain esoteric skill sets that you're not going to get anyplace else, and you have to understand the nature of policing that environment with such a transient population, and all the different considerations that go into these things. We had an assistant chief, and the assistant chief's still there, so I won't say her name. But somebody who I have a great deal of respect for. And one of the reasons I have a great deal of respect for her is because when she first got there, she made a mistake. And she made a decision on something, and it was against what you're supposed to do in an aviation law enforcement environment. Somebody brought this to her attention, and the next day or maybe day after, she wrote a memo to the entire department falling on her sword publicly, saying, hey, please bear with me. I'm new. I will not make this mistake ever again. And I'd like to apologize for any drama or whatever. And I'd never seen a law enforcement official do that ever, fall on their sword so publicly and apologize to the troops for making. I'd never seen it. So I wrote her an email telling her how much I respected that. But I'm still going to point out that the mistake was made because she came from elsewhere. And if you came from inside, the mistake would never been made.
Wait. Sorry, I got to act like Gil here for a second.
You can't be me.
I know I can't. No way near can I be you. But you're giving some broad strokes and leaving out. Really, you're.
Well, I don't remember all the details. I just remember that there was a mistake that was made that wouldn't have been made had the person come from inside the agency.
That's just how he does it.
And that broad strokes. That's what she said.
Well, the mistake she made was trying to do something that was against our current practices as far as overtime in the MOU. She came from the FBI, and they don't have unions.
Well, I guess we're drilling down now, but when I said her, everybody would have known who it was anyway.
Well, because you went broad, and I gotta bring it into, because it's not just about she came from somewhere else. She came from the FBI. She's never been a police officer.
Right, and that was another big part of that too. Is if you've never worn a uniform and written traffic tickets and walked the parking lot and gave out parking tickets and chased solicitors and do all the other stuff that airport police officers do, then you don't really grasp the job at a grassroots level.
And I had respect for her then when that occurred and she did fess up. But
man, I thought that was great. I got choked up reading the letter and briefing because I'd never seen any police administrator do that before.
You got choked up.
I got a little choked up, man. I really did.
But hey, it was short-lived. Because if she was really honorable, she would have rescinded her position when it came out that she did not have a post certificate and she had no business wearing a police uniform, badge and gun.
Well, see, I was gone. I was already retired by the time all that happened, so I'll let you speak to that.
Marshall, I'm going to give you this. That's for you.
Gold star for Marshall.
So I'm glad, Gil. This is for you. Okay, so you explain this to me. When have you ever heard in any police agency, sheriff's department, anywhere, where you're going to go against the governing body? I mean, I take issue with posts on different things sometimes, but when you point out the fact that, you know, we're in an honorable profession, we're supposed to be surrounded by people with honor, but we got some dishonorable people here. When you point out and say, hey, look, 3 years has gone by, we've done our research, we've looked, and we're taking this individual out of the post database because we have no record of this person ever having. Now
let's explain what post is to the listener, the non-police personnel who listen with the majority of our audience.
Post stands for the Peace Officer Standard and Training, and so you could liken it to the governing body that for universities for the state. This is the curriculum that every university shall have. This is the minimum standard for us to sanction you as a governing body.
To be accredited,
to be accredited college. You can exceed that, and you can go above and beyond that, but you've got to have the minimum foundation for it to stand up. So post is that for law enforcement.
Okay, so people understand that when we talk about post, we're talking about the statewide agency that makes sure all law enforcement officers meet a minimum standard of training, and all law enforcement agencies meet minimum standards of record keeping, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So post sent the letter saying, hey, look, you have someone who's in the database. You have her as a assistant police chief. We're kicking her out of the database because we don't have any record of her actually filling the mandate. And just so you understand how this works, Bill Bratton, when he came from New York, he had to be certified by post.
He sure did. He had to go to Rio Hondo, I think, for his research, didn't he?
Yep. Well, that was his third chance. He tried a couple areas before, and then eventually went to Rio Hondo, got it,
right,
and then became officially accredited and approved to be the chief
in the state of California, right?
So instead of trying to fix it, they tried to lie about it and say, "Oh no, we never hired her as a sworn position."
Like nobody's ever seen her in uniform with a badge and gun, though. I mean, there's photos of it. Everybody's seen it. I mean, how could they try to pull that off?
Publicly showing up at police graduation.
That's what I'm saying. It's come on, to even say that that's insulting people's intelligence.
Qualify at the range, but instead she stops wearing the uniform, turns her gun in, swaps out her car that had red and blues in it for a pool vehicle, and then turns around and says that it'll never happen, and then even lie about the actual documentation, the actual job announcement.
But see,
clearly. But
that should never have even been allowed to happen because the selection process was supposed to catch that this is what the job description says, and that person has to meet those requirements.
But the way it is with Post gives you that 3-year window to get it fixed.
Okay, so then when they did get it, when they had a chance to get it fixed and they didn't get it fixed, then
well, Post gives you that 3-year window. The job announcement said within 12 months, so she still had a year
to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look,
I drilled down and I contacted Post and said, is there a waiver possibility? And this is exactly what the Post director of training said, that we do not waive the requirements for federal officers because their standard is completely different than California law enforcement in terms of arrest and control procedures.
Right, because they don't have to do all that stuff.
So they said she would have to go through a full academy, and that's
wow.
That's why I believe they lied about it.
Oh, wow. Well, at that point, you're supposed to just say, okay, I'm going to resign. Because at that point, having come from the FBI already, she was already in her 50s. And while she was, still in pretty good shape, nobody wants to go through damn police academy at 50 years old. But listen, there's a video I want to show, and that's the next video there, POTUS, and it's about how one community handled their police selection process for their chief. Now, this is for the chief, but it would apply. It's not a smaller agency, but the level of responsibility is probably about the same. So, I'll keep talking. And so, it's video 2 on the outline. And so, it's interesting how they sought community input and used that to kind of winnow down that nationwide net that they actually did cast, and brought in candidates from all over the country, and then they did the paper cut using the community, and then they kind of had like a chain of command that it went up before they actually had their finalists confirmed by the city council. So we're going to watch this video, and we'll come back and discuss it.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mike Dardis.
And I'm Cherie Palello. Cincinnati neighbors and police officers are now adding their voice to the search for the new top cop. WLWT News 5's Tammy Matassa is live for us with what they want to see in the new police chief. Tammy.
Cherie, about 400 people in Cincinnati and the police department responded to the survey. Overall, people want to see a strong leader who cares about this city and has experience here. Now, the city manager says this feedback is critical for selecting the next police chief. The top 3 qualities people found most important in the next chief are integrity, honesty, and leadership. Asked what the chief should focus on in his first year, most people said morale, community, and police. When asked about experience, people said they want the new chief to be familiar with police, Cincinnati, and the department's history. One response said, quote, police chief should come from within the ranks of CPD.
I think what people want is people want authentic, they want solid, they want engaged leadership is what they want. I believe inside the department as well as outside of the department.
Now, the city manager says he's sensing the trend of what people want, and he will consider it during this entire process. Reporting live from City Hall, Tammy Matassa, WLWT.
So, I find it interesting that you have smaller agencies who have no hesitation in promoting from within for that very reason. And they say, hey, we want someone who understands this community. We want someone who's worked here and who understands the culture of our community and understands how things go around here, essentially, unless they want to shake it up and make a change, in which case they'll gladly go outside to get somebody to shake it up and make a change, right? But to see that you have a large agency that's about 1,200 total, almost half of that sworn, and there allegedly is a nationwide search, but this so happens the person who's most qualified for the job is somebody who came from a 58 officer agency to come to an agency where there's more than 58 sergeants. There's like 80 sergeants at the agency, and the guy comes from a place where there's 58 officers total. It just makes you wonder, and especially when you see him in the picture with the chief, as the chief was getting sworn in, and he had all his homeboys come to take a picture with him, and he's there. It just really. And I'm not saying that the guy from the new assistant chief isn't a good solid chief. I'm not saying I don't know anything about him. I'm just saying. Other than where he came from, and that there's no way he could have that kind of background to surpass what any of the captains within that agency would have, considering that all of them are responsible for more than 100 people themselves.
Hey.
Well, I can tell you, I did reach out to some folks at Fountain Valley Police Department, and I was told that they were in the process or going to do a vote of no confidence until they found out that he was leaving, and we were going to be taking him on, and then they decided not to do that. So.
Well, it would have been nice for the bastard to say something, but Santa Monica did us that way too, though. You remember that?
Hey, but Marsha, this is Gil. I have a quick question for you, and I'm going to ask you to just, I know you guys are tiptoeing around the thing here with this chief and whatever, but isn't the truth that the Los Angeles World Airports just doesn't have the confidence in your department the way they do the LAPD or other municipal police agencies, and that's why they continue to do what they're doing?
Yeah, I would say yes to that a couple of years ago, but that's not the case anymore. Just based off of some of the other things that are going on, and this is more about money, I think, than anything else. So when you,
how so?
Well, when you take the 5 individuals that I mentioned, actually, first off, minus the one from the FBI, because their retirement is not the same. But when you talk about individuals coming from PERS, and these individuals.
Now PERS is the statewide retirement system for public employees,
retirement system,
who are not part of the larger agencies like LAPD. Like a CHP is in PERS, and most of the other police agencies.
LAPD has the police and fire pension system, but that applies as well because Director Gannon, did his time there too. So when you're talking about reciprocity, Lacers, the city's retirement, has that reciprocity. But when you start looking at, and we can have this conversation on another show about pension systems and about how the rank and file folks are really vilified, but it's really the folks at the top of the organization that are really the ones that are spiking these pensions. So let's take, for example, the chief from Irvine, who's now our chief. He left making over $300,000 in salary. So now he's
in Irvine?
Correct.
Are you kidding me?
In Irvine.
How big is that department?
211, I believe.
Wow, it should. Yeah, 211 is right. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Put it in context. Chief Charlie Beck is making about $350, and he's got 10,000.
10,000 sworn alone.
Okay, so Irvine, making over 200,000. I'm making no comments about the organization, about the police department.
No. I'm just thinking.
I'm just saying he leaves there making about, let's say, 290 and some change, getting 90% of his last check.
Right.
Now he comes over, makes about another 200. So he's pulling in annually over $475,000.
Wow.
So then he hooks up his 2 homies that are coming in. They're going to do the same thing, and all of these individuals with their pension and their current salary they're bringing in here will be actually making more money than Charlie Beck.
Oh yeah, sure. And, it reminds me of that scene in Silverado when the Brian Dennehy character is like kind of the big crime boss in the little town, and the Jeff Goldblum character comes in and goes, "Hey, well, what about the law? We're making all this money, but what are we going to do about the law?" And then the Kevin Kline character, he flips his lapel over and he's wearing a marshal's badge, and he goes, "Things are very sweet here." And then they bring in the whole crew in the Silverado, and they all come and get paid. So LAX might be like Silverado.
Marshall.
So you could be the Danny Glover character.
Hey, Marshall, this is JB. How you doing, bro?
What's going on, man?
You got it, man. Listen, so I'm listening to this, and I've worked in a couple of specialized agencies, as you know, that have hired from outside. And my current chief, who's been there probably almost 10 years now, is exactly what we needed. And I'm not saying that these are anomalies where chiefs come in and they're really great, shoot from the hip, make some changes. But we've seen some things with this particular chief as far as succession planning and developing the talent in the organization, because it wasn't being done there, because in the past it might have been more about money. And in this instance, I certainly understand what you're saying. And I think that guys like yourself, because I know you're like a chained up dog ready to go. And I would.
It's the canine handler. So I guess that's appropriate.
Yeah, no, and I'm saying that you're the kind of POA president I would want. I know that you go out and you advocate for your folks. What I would ask you to do is because of where your folks are and because of what's not happening, challenge the command staff and the organization to do the succession planning by cultivating and developing talent
they've
at
been
the
doing
level.
that. I know what you're saying.
Well, no, but the
these
reason
guys
why
go to FBI Academy. All these captains, they got law degrees. They've been to FBI Academy. They've done all that.
All I'm saying,
SLI, all that.
All I'm saying is though, when you talk about confidence or lack thereof, one need only to point at what Brian Walker was accused of and say, well, this is what we have at the top of the organization. We don't want it, so we want to go outside. And all
that was before. That was happening way before he got.
But my
point
is,
indicted.
my point is that might be the excuse that they give. But yes, you're right. I have seen situations where people bring in people that they're more familiar working with, or they think that these are the people that are going to help them get a leg up, and
they can trust them and everything else. But
you do have talent at LAX.
Exactly.
I give you that.
Let me spell this out for you, okay? So we're not talking about one or two times. We're talking about 19 different times.
That's the thing.
Over the last 10 years,
right.
Okay?
Right, that's the problem.
Well, no, and as you know, I remember the whole. I remember how it came from Santa Monica and started.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, Inglewood and all over.
I have not been one that has been opposed to bringing someone from the outside with the understanding that they were going to come in, bring something to the table, and actually foster the people and have the succession planning to say that. So,
and be more qualified than the internal candidates.
Well, identify the talent, because they have talent there. I don't dispute that.
So let me finish. So when you bring in Gannon from LAPD, 34 years LAPD. I said, hey, let's give them a shot. LAPD does something very well that a lot of agencies don't do, is they promote their agency. Good, bad, or indifferent. They
Big
promote
time.
Their agency
yeah,
well.
No doubt about that.
Forever. Okay, regardless of what people may or may not think about the organization, they say, hey, we're the best. We don't care what you think. We're the best.
Right.
No matter what the newspaper says, no matter what's going on, we're the best.
No matter what the DOJ said, we're the best.
But the league, they have the league.
So when you bring in someone like Gannon, and I'm thinking, okay, great. Our PIO is going to get better. The perception.
Now the PIO is the public information officer.
Okay, that does not happen. Instead, it's the reverse. What
right.
they start doing is stripping away more jobs and saying, hey, it's a partnership. Let's bring in more LAPD to do more of our jobs. And when you look at the two top captains in the command staff organization, and both of them have law degrees.
Right. And you've got captains who've been to the FBI National Academy, for God's sake.
You got another one behind him with a master's. You got another one behind him that I think three courses short from a bachelor's. All of them have more than 25 years on the job.
And nobody can get one assistant chief job in all this?
Yeah, and let me ask you this question. What was
But here's the thing. Even when the positions were vacant, they didn't even allow them to be acting chiefs. They left them vacant. Okay? So when you have two, not one, but two individuals from LA County sheriffs, one was retired, one's still there about to retire, and they're the top of the organization. This is prior to the whole drama with
the Baca Tanaka scandal,
right? It's not cut up in all of that.
The Baca Tanaka stepped into Kaka, that scandal.
When you got an individual that at the top, number 3 in the organization for LA County sheriffs, countywide, and you find someone from Orange County that is somehow more qualified than them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why the whole thing is it's a scam. It's a dodge. It's a hustle, because there's no way that you could tell me that you did a nationwide or even a statewide search, and what you came up with is someone who just doesn't have the background to do that. And even if you would come from an aviation law enforcement background, does Fountain Valley have an airport?
I don't know.
I mean, they might.
Marshall,
they got a helipad.
Marshall, let me ask you this: this post fiasco with the FBI folk, there must be a trail within the command staff, the current command staff, and down all the way, I'd assume, to the training division, who are culpable in trying to allow this to carry on, right?
No, and that's the problem. So because it's a proprietary agency and because the positions are exempt, they're not subject to the same civil service process. So at this point, the only way that the command staff could get this changed is by filing a class action lawsuit, take it outside of the hands of the city, put it in the hands of the court, and say, hey, These discriminatory practices have to stop.
No,
when you say command staff, you mean the internal personnel who've been getting passed over for promotion,
right?
Who are really, you would argue, are the ones who are being injured by this.
Correct.
Because they're the ones who are next up at bat and they're not getting their turn.
But
what I meant was culpable.
Who is it? LAWA or is it the city of Los Angeles? Who's making these decisions?
Well, it's a combination, but most of it is the city of Los Angeles allows LAWA to do their thing until it becomes a problem.
That's politics, brother.
No, I know it's politics.
There's nothing but politics.
Hey, Marshall, my question was, so I've been a post-training coordinator before, and I even helped usher a police department into the post program.
Right.
So I'm well aware of the process. But the part I have to ask you is, at what point did post contact the post coordinator, and then the post coordinator, who's usually a sergeant, bring it to somebody else in admin services and say, hey, we have a problem, and then that lieutenant or that captain, brought it to whom they needed to bring it to? Where does the trail lead? Because I know that this assistant chief was not just communicating with post by herself. And you notice it doesn't happen that way.
Right.
So I'm wondering,
and that's not even the issue. Post already said, hey, look, she's out of the database. She doesn't have a certificate, so she cannot be a sworn police officer.
Right. I guess the point I mean is who actually submitted the first piece of paperwork to post saying that she's an assistant chief and put her in EDI, and then they document this to get the clock rolling. Because I guess my point,
that's not improper because
because she had 12
they just do it because they do it for every employee.
Yeah, she had 12 months to get it right.
Okay, I got you. No, I was just curious because along the way, I know that certainly you guys were looking at that to see how that was going to take place at the 12-month mark and so on. I'm just wondering at what point, when we talk about discriminatory practices, or we talk about lapse in integrity or judgment or not doing the right thing, where could this have been stopped? Why wasn't, at what point, what happened at the 12-month mark when you guys saw this?
We weren't even paying attention to it.
Okay.
We weren't
right, because it's not your job to do. You got you're a union. You know what I mean?
I'm just curious if that's an issue that they're hiring people outside. Because I could see the benefit in bringing someone in from the FBI, but I see meaning at least to communicate with the other parts of the FBI on behalf of the department. They came right in and
put a right of Homeland Security section, and that was a great fit.
Yeah, and the thing is I just don't understand why they would make it a sworn position, knowing that the FBI doesn't have that, and.
Because I don't think because it wasn't written for her. It wasn't written for her. It was written for, it's a general position.
Right, which in essence someone from inside could have assumed.
Exactly.
It was written in 2007. She got hired in 2010.
Right.
Yeah, so it wasn't set up for her.
Right.
And let's talk about this, good people at home. Please understand that sometimes they have a particular candidate in mind when they write the job flyer.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and they'll lower the standard in certain areas and raise the standard where the person is strong to get the candidate they want.
Or they'll ask for a certain certification that they know only certain person
people
has.
have. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, George, you had Jaretta on here recently, didn't you?
We have her on last year. Didn't we have Jaretta on last year?
Yeah, it was last year.
Right.
So what happened with LAPD is something that's really unprecedented.
But Craig Lally was on last week.
Yeah.
Okay, so Craig Lally. So
are you talking about Mike Himes? Mike Himes.
So they wrote that spec specifically, made it exempt for him, and took him from being a civilian commander to a sworn one-star uniform LAPD commander. That's never happened.
That's unprecedented, especially over at that agency.
For John Miller, is that what you're talking about?
No, because he stayed a civilian. John Miller stayed a civilian.
Yeah, this
was a guy who
because he had a badge. John Miller had a badge.
Right, he got in trouble with it at the airport. I remember that.
And the only other thing that was different was also Mike Burko. When he came in, he was sworn, but he was one of the first people to come from outside the department and assume the rank of deputy chief.
Where'd he come from?
Irvine.
Irvine. Wow.
Right.
Okay.
That's not right.
Who else came from outside the department?
Sharon Pappas.
Oh, that's right, for MTA.
Oh,
When MTA got absorbed,
well, yeah,
that's right.
yeah, you're right.
She was RTD.
Yeah, RTD, MTA, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, you're right. But that was actually different in the sense that the way they assumed her or brought her in was,
right.
but you're
Her
absolutely
agency
right.
got absorbed. She wasn't a standalone hire.
Right.
So Burkow came over, and actually he preceded Maggard.
Right.
Maggard wound up going over as a deputy, then he became the chief following Burkow. Burkow got in trouble for sexual harassment or whatever. They ran him out of there.
Wow.
But the interesting thing is the city manager from Irvine, once Maggard left and the new chief was appointed, he's quoted in the paper saying, we no longer have to go outside our borders to find talent.
Right.
So we hired someone from within.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? But then we can't do that with 600 people on a job to pick from.
Well, Marshall, let me ask you this. I questioned during the prior to the run up to the election for mayor. You guys had posted, your union had posted support for Eric Garcetti, and of course, I think he's as bad as any other Democrat in this in this state, But you guys supported him, and I had asked you about that one time on one of the shows, a couple of months ago or something. So my question to you is, I know that, and as a former union guy too for my department, these political relationships that you develop are partly to say, hey, yeah, we like where you stand and what you stand for and what you plan to do and whatever. The other part is, our union's going to give you money for your campaign, but when we need you to help us out. And I'm just wondering, why hasn't the support for Garcetti for his run up to re-election, why hasn't that helped you guys out with this current run for chiefs?
That's a good question. It's helped us in certain areas and not others. And part of the problem is I believe internally we've been disjointed, and that's what we're trying to fix right now. In terms of the officers, the sergeants, the lieutenants, the captains, everybody on the same sheet of music, pointing the same way.
Because right now there's 3 different unions at that agency.
Where does the Lawwood director stand on that?
You talking about the general manager, the CEO?
Yeah, she came from Oakland, right?
She came from Oakland, and so I think she's been kind of shielded from a lot of things, and now it's getting to the point where she's no longer going to be able to do that. The thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is the issue of race, and I'm waiting for Gil to chime in on some of these things. But let's talk about this. Our organization is definitely more diverse than anywhere else.
Right.
We're currently 73% minority, but yet the last 5 consecutive hires have been male white. Now, someone told me, "Oh no, this guy coming from Fountain Valley is Hispanic." Okay, he's Hispanic.
Wasn't George Santana was Latino?
Supposedly.
Come on now.
Do you have a button for that?
You're wrong for that.
Don't do Gorgeous George like that, man. Don't do Gorgeous George like that. It's definitely Latino, man.
My wife is Mexican, just for the record. I had a mariachi at my wedding. Don't jump all over me, Gil.
Hey, just because mariachis are there, that don't mean nothing.
And his favorite beer is Modelo Negro.
Modelo.
Hey, you got to get with the black bottle. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying.
But what I'm saying is this: is we do know that Orange County and LA County is completely different in a lot of things.
Many ways.
Okay, you take up the demographics of Irvine, of Fountain Valley. We have more.
The demographics of their police departments, if nothing else.
Well, I was just going to say we have more people of color probably on our union board than in their entire city.
Wow.
But
at least after dark.
Well, what does that mean, though? What does that mean?
So
therefore, what, Marshall?
Hey, Marshall, I answered it. There's certainly qualified minorities in this region who are at certain points in different agencies
and who applied.
But also there are within the airport police department, and
the makeup of the captains union. There's 6 captains. One is white, and all the others are minority, and all the others were passed over.
Yeah, and it may be that somebody thought that that they didn't like that. maybe they didn't like the fact that the internal command staff was so heavily minority, and that there was a problem there that they needed to balance out. I don't know.
Well, I find racism a tough one to swallow in the city of Los Angeles, because these guys are pushing for, diversity and everything, and I think
the executive director is a female black.
I think Marshall,
right. So you're right.
Let's talk about the history of our organization.
I think it's
when you talk about the late '80s, early '90s. What was LAPD? 8 out of 10 were male white. So all of those individuals that were trying to get a job in the city of LA as a police officer with LAPD were turned away back in the late 80s, early 90s. Where do you think they went? They went to the airport. That was back when they had the longest serving mayor ever, because they changed it since then, was Bradley.
Right.
So Bradley's the one that set that up to where, hey, minorities can't get a job with LAPD; they're being turned away. We got a law enforcement.
Or you can get a job, but you have a tough way to go, like he did when he was at LAPD.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, I understand your point, Gil, being on the outside, that it does look like a tough sell.
Yeah,
that's a tough sell.
I'm the last person to go and talk about just about race. I mean, if you would have come to my wedding, it was like United Colors of Benetton with my group here. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get the invite, so apparently it got lost in the mail.
Because there were too many non-Republicans there, so I didn't want you to start a fight.
Right. We didn't want you to get over there and start trumping.
But listen, Marshall. but
unlike tripping.
trying to get back to the point here, though. I think the biggest downfall of that agency is it just doesn't have the political clout, and it has too many detractors over at LAPD that are whispering in people's ears, and I don't know that you guys will ever be able to, unless you get some political support from the city people and guys like Garcetti, unless you get their full support to stand up for you guys, I think you're always going to come up short. It's one of those it's like my former agency, like yours, like the school police. You have this LAPD that says, well, okay, we have to take them. I mean, we have to work with them and whatever, but we don't really view them as our equals. And I think you're always going to run into this issue for especially for the top jobs.
Sure. But there's ways around that too. And back when George was still working there, and we actually served on the union board for a short time together, and we were trying to do something then that I think things would be differently now had we done it then, and that was aligning ourselves with the Teamsters.
That would have been very helpful. Like the Port Police did, like the old Housing Authority Police did. Yeah.
We got voted out on that one. The Port Authority or Port Police down in Los Angeles, Port Police. They're aligned with the longshoremen.
Oh.
That's
I didn't know that.
That's one of the different reasons why they don't have some of the same challenges that we have. So those are the type of discussions that are changing, because at the end of the day, it still comes down to money. It still comes down to business, because the money's still green. The color's still green, as last I checked.
That's right.
So that's what it comes down to, and those are the things we have to do. And so, if
I was you, Marshall, I'd be knocking on Garcetti's door.
Yeah,
I'd be down there talking about, hey, just look what they did to us. Look what they're doing to us now.
No, what are you going to do with it?
What you going to do? What you going to do?
The last thing that I'm sure City Council, Lauer, anybody wants is any kind of dysfunction about vote of no confidence or any of that kind of stuff while you're trying to bid for the Olympics.
That's right.
Right, that's true.
That's right.
So,
absolutely.
Leverage. I call that leverage.
Those conversations are going to have to happen real soon.
I call that leverage.
Especially when that's they have to come through LAX.
They have to come through LAX. That's why LAX is dual. It got two levels now for the '84 Olympics. It was done in preparation for the '84 Olympics. So you got to come through LAX.
Even Comey had to come through LAX.
Wow, and he flew back out too real quick. So look, Marshall, I appreciate you adding your voice to the conversation, and good luck with that. Fighting that good fight over there, because unfortunately the people in charge are the ones who got the sweet gigs, and they're not going to push for it.
That's right.
And the layer that's most directly impacted is the command staff, the captains, and there's only 6 of them, and all of them are not pushing this publicly, although I'd like to ask each one of you why. And I know each one of you, and I think highly of each one of you. I've got personal relationship with each one of you. I'd like to see you all get together on this and stand up because you're the ones being injured right now.
Not going to happen.
Well, I wish they would, and I know they're careerists, and you don't get to make captain without being a careerist. But man, I've shared laughs with all of you and shared meals and coffee with all of you. Step up. You guys got to get together and do something about this. Stop getting punked. There, I said it.
It's in the work.
Good. Thank God, because they deserve it. They're good people. All right, man.
Hey,
well,
always
listen.
A pleasure.
Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll get you in the studio next time.
Yeah, man. When you coming back, Marshall?
Soon. Next time I go to D.C., Gil, I'm gonna take you with me. We're gonna rock the hall.
All right, sounds good to me. Just let me know when.
All right.
And the union's going to book my flight. Isn't that something? Wow. Right. You know what, Marshall? Thank you. Thank you for
that, Marshall. All right, Marshall.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Have a good one. Safe
flight.
Right. Have a good Memorial weekend, guys.
Oh, you too, man. Be safe.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was Marshall Mc Clain, president of the Los Angeles Airport Police Officers Association, which is a labor union that represents the rank and file officers of the L.A. Airport Police at Los Angeles Airport, Van Nuys, and, I guess Ontario for the time being, but not much longer. So, we got to talk about Manchester. There's, it's unfortunate what we had happen in the UK the other night, but it's a sign of the times. And if you look at the way it went down, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often based on the way it went down. So, can we play that first video, Poetess, and then we'll come back and talk about it. And for those of you who haven't heard about the UK bombing. The Ariana Grande concert.
The investigation into Monday night's deadly bombing that targeted children and teens intensified today.
Can you move back down, please?
Police conducted 2 raids in Manchester and named the suspected suicide bomber for the first time.
The man suspected of carrying out last night's atrocity is 22-year-old Salman Abedi.
This home was stormed by armed law enforcement in connection with the investigation. Police say a 23-year-old man has also been arrested in South Manchester in relation to the terror attack that occurred around 10:30 last night.
Oh my God.
The blast was heard inside the Manchester Arena just after an Ariana Grande performance, as many parents waited to pick up their children and crowds were streaming out of the exits. The explosion outside the venue near the box office was so powerful it can be seen and heard on this dashcam video from a parked car far from the detonation point.
The single terrorist detonated his improvised explosive device near one of the exits of the venue, deliberately choosing the time and place to cause maximum carnage.
ISIS has claimed responsibility, but a British counter-terror official tells CNN they have seen no links to known terror groups. President Trump was quick to condemn the attack in his own unique way.
I will call them from now on losers, because that's what they are. They're losers.
Immediately following the blast, thousands fled the scene, leaping over chairs to escape.
We managed to get through the doors, and how we wasn't crushed to death is a miracle.
This witness described shrapnel injuries reminiscent of previous terrorist bombings.
Obviously, when we've seen children like that as well with blood, and we were having to pull nails out of their arms and stuff, and a couple out with this little girl's face.
Police are frantically examining the bomb remnants for clues, while experts say this was more sophisticated than the work of a lone wolf.
How did this bomber learn how to make this? In general, it's, I think, highly unlikely that he just learned about it on the internet.
As the United Kingdom reels from its worst attack since 2005, security across the country is stepping up. The Prime Minister vowing terrorists will not prevail.
The president called them losers, and I agree that they want to be called monsters. They want to be something to be feared. So I think that nobody wants to be called a loser, but I like the term punk bitch better, because ain't nobody scared of a punk bitch.
You can't say that on TV.
So, well, he should say it. He said whatever the hell else he want. Send a tweet out, call them punk bitches. But before we get to that story, we have a caller. I'm hoping the caller is going to add their voice to the conversation about terrorism. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is not a test.
Oh, wow.
Your regularly scheduled program has been interrupted.
He's back
by
from
the Willie Sweet Wonka Joe.
Willie Sweet Wonka Joe, man, when'd you get out? Where you been?
Hey, man. Hey, man.
Well,
I had a pack of cigarettes.
You behaved yourself, so they let you out early?
Bruh, I just bought a ring. They didn't give me my ring back. They stole my ring in there, man.
What kind of ring? Was it a wedding ring?
Nah, it was a ring from Walmart.
No. Yeah, okay.
Fuck you, DeKalb County Correctional Facility. No, I was just playing.
So what's going on with you?
Hey, man, you know, I'm on something else. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to reiterate and re-innovate and resuscitate my lifestyle.
Okay, that sounds like that might be a good idea.
A bunch of re's in there.
A lot of re's.
A lot of re's.
Sounds like that's a good idea. Now, you know, you're in the Atlanta area. And
yes, I am.
And Atlanta was victim of a terrorist attack during the '96 Olympics. Now, you weren't out there back then? You were still in Jersey, though, right?
Yeah, I was in Jersey.
But you've been to Centennial Park, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been out there too, man.
Beautiful asses out there.
Hello.
Okay, well, I wasn't there for that. I was there. At night, and I went over to see the memorial for the victims of the terrorist bombing. That they initially blamed on Richard Jewell.
You was at the strip club.
The '96. What was it? Was it Magic City? Is that what they call it? Magic City? Anyway.
I don't know. Yeah.
But it's been touched. Atlanta's a city that's been touched by terrorism. And when I don't know, man. What do you got? What's your input on the Manchester thing in the UK? And
what's my input?
Yeah, and what's your personal preparation to be ready for something like that to happen here? Because it ain't if, it's when.
Well, George, as you already know, I am a descendant of slavery in America. And I come from a culture where the G codes is above the law until you in the courtroom facing the judge and the jury. But
then that all goes out the window.
Exactly. In the streets, civilians are off limits. You know what I'm saying?
They're supposed to be, yeah. Absolutely.
So Boko Haram and Al Qaeda and ISIS and and all that shit. I'm not into killing innocent people, by no means.
But see, their goal is to spread terror. That's why they're killing innocent people. And plus, civilians are easier to kill. Let's be honest. If you're a punk bitch, it's easier to go kill a bunch of civilians.
That's cowardly.
It sure is.
And it's cowardly from their perspective. It's cowardly from the American and European perspective to kill innocent people and call them collateral damage.
But I will say, there's nothing cowardly about lighting yourself off with a bomb vest, knowing that you're getting ready to do that. That takes a certain kind of crazy. That takes a certain kind of crazy to do that.
What would make a man do that, though?
Well, he's got brainwashed, man. I mean, that's, he's brainwashed through religion, which happens a lot.
So were the Japanese fighters, were they the Yamakazes?
The kamikazes.
Were they brainwashed?
Yeah, they were brainwashed, and they were hopped up on what was it? There's it's not opium. There was something that they were on.
I don't know.
You remember? Did you hear that though? There was something that they were on, and they were sealed in those cockpits. When they got into those cockpits were sealed shut, so they weren't. They knew they weren't getting out.
So George, are certain American forces, military,
not like that. I know Green Berets. I know SEALs. I spent all last week with Green Berets, SEAls, and Rangers. And none of them want to die.
Let's not go into an exception of the rule.
No, I'm saying none of them dudes want to die.
Is there a section or a percentage of military personnel who wants to go into the military to kill cowheads?
Yeah, but not to get killed by them. That's what I'm saying. That's the difference. It's a different mentality.
But it's a brainwash.
Okay, well, I would give you that it's mental conditioning. I will give you that it's mental conditioning.
If you're going to kill yourself, we're talking about brainwashing, and it's brainwashing on different types of levels.
I don't think you could talk any of those guys into going into a village in Afghanistan full of women and children coming out of whoever they listen to over their concert and blow himself up in the middle of that. You're not talking any of those guys into that, man. That goes against the ethos of the American soldier, the American fighting man and woman. They're not going to do that. So this is why the enemy is so different. So I'm asking you, but as somebody who's out there, you're a long distance truck driver, right?
No, George, I would never do that. That's horrible.
No, I'm not asking when you go blow some shit up. I'm asking you, aren't you a truck driver?
That's what he meant.
Yeah,
I am being a truck driver is horrible? I thought you were a truck driver.
No, long distance.
Oh, okay. Long distance is horrible?
He's good for short distance.
No, he's only good for short distance. That's what I heard.
Around the corner.
That's what she said. He's only good for short distance.
Around the corner.
But no, I am a contractor of interstate commerce.
Uh-oh.
That sounds like
Exactly.
narcotics.
That does sound like narcotics,
Sounds
doesn't
like
it?
narcotics.
That sounds like narcotics. That sounds like hitting compartments.
It could be, but anyway, my input though. Sorry to say, we never hear the perspective of the people from their side. So I feel like the shit that happened in Manchester, the shit that goes on with the terrorists.
Yeah, the bomber and the community the bomber comes from. But see, nobody wants to hear their perspective.
Not just the bomber, just the whole culture of terrorism in today's society.
It's hard to get his perspective because he blew himself up.
He's all over the place. His perspective's all over the board.
It's a global phenomenon.
It
you know
is.
What I'm saying?
It is. But see, nobody even wants to hear what they're saying now because they do stuff like this.
But I ask you this.
I don't even care why at this point. Just stop doing it.
But I ask you this, George. Europe is a land where they don't produce a lot of luxury or wealthy commodities out the ground, right?
Not out of the ground, sure.
No. But they're very wealthy there.
Right.
Right? T-Mobile is owned by a German telecom corporation, right?
Okay.
Very wealthy over there. Zurich, Switzerland, all that.
Right, a whole bunch, right, sure.
England.
All the luxury all of your luxury brands are European for the most part, sure.
Now, at the end of the day, I understand this from street perspective. When a new drug circuit or network or organization takes over, they have a certain time period where they're in control.
Okay.
Then they start to receive attacks. You know what I'm saying?
Even sometime from within.
So I look at it on the business scale of nations and governments. Right now, Europe, America, these places are in control of the world's commodities. They take stuff out the ground, out of the ocean, from all over the world. And the world is mostly in poverty. But these places are very rich and wealthy. You're on top, so you're going to get attacked.
Right.
Because you're the top dog.
Well, and we could get into colonialism and exploitation and all that. I understand that. I understand that. That's the way of the world, as Earth, Wind, and Fire once sang. You know, but it doesn't. I don't care. It has always been that way, and we didn't even see terrorism rise up until the 40s. I think was the first, or the 50s was the first incidence of terrorism in Algeria.
Whoa, George.
Whoa.
Terrorism has been around for a long time.
Not political terrorism like this, where people are going in and blowing themselves up. You mean
to tell me the Ku Klux Klan scaring Negroes from voting wasn't political terrorism?
Okay, you know what? That would be domestic terrorism. I guess I would give you that.
Okay.
But that's domestic terrorism. I'm talking about international terrorism. I'm talking about what we're seeing today.
Terrorism.
What we're seeing today. Yeah. The asymmetrical warfare is another term for it. We didn't see that. We didn't see that before.
Let me ask you this. Was the American government financing the Contras in the Latin world to kill thousands and thousands of men, women, and children? Was that terrorism?
Well, some people tell you that was just a civil war. You know?
But who?
But we're going to listen, we're getting deep off into the weeds there, and we don't have a whole lot of time left. So
I mean, that's all I'm saying, George. It depends on how you look at it.
Well, your president said, listen, I'm not going to say your president. Our president said, right as he was taking office, that America's hands aren't clean. Okay? You know, and anybody who doubts that hasn't been paying attention. Certainly, America's hands aren't clean. America does stuff to other countries that we would like people to think only other countries do to us.
You know why he said that, George? Because Trump is a businessman. The way I see things through business. I don't see things through religion and emotions and, oh, this is so sad. I track the money.
Well,
I see what's going on politically and business-wise.
Right. They say follow the money always.
But, George, George.
Go ahead.
Okay, before I go, yo, Gil, man, you should have hollered at me last week, man. I could have. I've been coming on this show. I mean, not coming on, but I've been talking to y'all for a little bit.
Right.
Gil, I've been telling you about this secret shit all this time, but it took a white man named Cruz to come on here and to get you to open up.
Number one, Cruz is a Mexican, and the white man is Kent Lee.
Right. Kent was the only white guy here. He was the only white guy here.
I've been telling you this shit all this time, Gil. This deep state, secret society, man, we all pawns, man. This shit goes back to the European monarchies and all that shit, man. This shit is a game way over your head, man. You know what I mean?
I think we're starting to see it start to surface now, and eventually it had to happen.
Yeah.
But look, man, we're gonna wrap it up, and I appreciate you
Hey,
calling
George,
in.
when
Haven't
you
heard
coming
from you
back
in a
to
while.
Atlanta, man?
You know, I don't know. That's a good question. I thought I would have been there already, but
okay.
I don't know. But
Well,
I'll
next
try.
time you come back, man, you know what I'm saying? Holla at me, man.
Yeah,
We can
man.
smoke a little bit and go to the gun range.
That's still my ring. I'll be in custody with you with my jewelry.
All right.
All right, man.
All right,
Thanks
I'm
for
out.
calling in.
Yeah.
All right, and that was Right Along radio show legend Willie Sweet, Wonka Joe. So,
Right Along Radio's biggest fan.
right. Yeah, it's always a good time with him. Always a good time. But yeah, but he has been talking about that for a while. He has been talking about the outer edges, the fringe elements that control society from the seemingly from the sidelines, right? Mr. Unseen pulling strings with his pinky ring, as Ice Cube once said. So, wow, we ended up being we burned up all our time with that.
Yeah,
wow.
George, when you go down to Atlanta, let me know about his trailer park and his. I was taken aback on that.
He ain't no trailer park.
Was he living in a
He in the projects.
Oh,
he in the projects.
Well, I don't know. He said he's in the Atlanta area. I don't think he's actually in Atlanta proper.
Oh,
so he's not like what's the word?
Is he in
Bankhead? Bankhead. Buckhead's where they got money.
Well, he must be there.
He might be.
No, he's not there.
No,
nope.
I asked him if was he in Bankhead. He said he wasn't. Maybe he's in the Bluff area or something. I don't know. Oh, College Park.
Oh, College Park.
College Park with Bubba Sparks.
Well,
in there. There you go. Then last time I was out there, I was actually in College Park. I went to a Waffle House, and I was disgusted by the crap that was on the floor in the Waffle House at College Park. I shouldn't have been. I actually posted pictures on Facebook. It was filthy.
Did you have the 2 pork chops, eggs, and hot cake special?
It's served up in a dirty ashtray.
Nice.
So
love me some Waffle House.
Yeah, the Awful House.
Waffle House.
The Awful House. That's what I call it, the Awful House. If they got a Waffle House, they got a damn Cracker Barrel. Go to the Cracker Barrel instead.
Cracker Barrel?
Cracker Barrel.
No, I actually like Cracker Barrel.
Me too. There's one in Vegas now. I'm looking forward to the next trip out there. So anyway, listen.
Gil, do you do Cracker Barrel?
Oh, no.
You kidding me?
Nope.
Well, next time you go to Vegas, you know where it is, right off the 15. You can see it as you pull into town, right in front of Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah, I'll probably drive right past it.
When I'm in Vegas, I do the peppermill.
Oh, yeah. You kidding me? Got to do that. What? You know nothing about no peppermill.
Yes, I do.
That's a shot show. That's a shot show staple, man. We're in there drinking Bloody Marys at 8:30 in the morning. What?
Why wait till 8:30?
All right, folks. So that's your Southwest region restaurant review by JB, Peppermill resident extraordinaire. But you're not going to be here next week, you said.
Yeah, I'm not going to be here, but you know, I do want to reserve a show segment at least to talk about the terrorist attack in Manchester, and then just the lead up to it, because there's some interesting things about it that we didn't get to tonight.
Well, we can find out more and more about the victims too, and I think that we'll be able to really delve into it a lot more once we. Everything comes out. I know one of the victims was an off-duty police officer.
Right, but I mean, when you have people who are, plotting the murder of 8-year-old little girls, and you have politicians coming out saying, we shouldn't hate anybody, and we should be careful not to, all the political correctness stuff. It's so tiring. I've had it up to here with that. It's really time to. We can't contain these guys. We're not going to contain them. They have to be destroyed. And in order to protect ourselves here in America, in the general public, law enforcement is going to have to partner with private industry, There's going to have to be more surveillance. There's going to have to be more frisk and stops. There's going to have to be.
You mean in terms of like surveillance capabilities and stuff like that?
Yeah,
contractors.
The stuff that the police departments can't do is going to have to be contracted out to people who are willing to do it. Start following these people. Stick with them when the police have to give up because it's not in their budget. Because there's no such thing as a lone wolf anymore. We've learned that every quote lone wolf close quote has a whole group of people supporting him, a network. So I want to get into that stuff. But I won't be here next Thursday. That's correct. It'll be my birthday. So
wow, man, happy birthday, man!
Be on a road trip.
Another birthday. You made it.
Be on a road trip.
Are you going down by Mexico?
Oh no, I don't go down there. Go south of that border? No, sir.
I'm actually planning on doing it. I've been talking about it for like the last 6 months.
No, there's not one thing for Gil down there.
Sure it is.
It ain't not one thing for Gil down there.
You don't hear me Wednesday evening, it'd be like, Gil's not responding to my text. Yeah. Thursday, where's Gil?
Right.
I'll be running north where it's safe, for God's sakes.
Well, have fun up there, man. And I got some hotel recommendations on the way up there, so we'll talk about that out there.
We're looking at property up there, and
nice. So, looking at Cambria and all that.
Yeah.
Cambria's beautiful. I looked at property up there once upon a time. Yeah,
love it up there.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, until next week, I'm George Holt.
I'm Gil Contreras.
I'm the visitor, J.B. Williams.
And I'm Gil O'Reilly.
And I'll see you next week. He won't. Hopefully you can come in.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll catch you guys for show 78 next week. Later.
All right.